How did the tobacco companies manage to lie to the public in the face of all the scientific evidence? They realized that the science didn't need to be disproven. It was enough to create doubt in the minds of the public to keep them from recognizing the truth.
Tens of thousands of doctors in all branches of medicine in all parts of the country were asked that question. What cigarette do you smoke, doctor? The brand named most was Camel.
The cigarette companies sought to reassure the public that their product wasn't dangerous.
That is wonderful.
Even though it was, and they knew it to be so at the time.
The medical specialist stated that the ears, nose, throat, and accessory organs of all participating subjects examined by me were not adversely affected in the 6 months period by smoking the cigarettes provided.
Where did this fake science come from? The tobacco industry funded private institutes and individuals to create phony science and disseminate it, creating the appearance there was a debate where there was none. Much of this phony science came from this man, Dr. Frederick Seitz, and the institute he co-founded, the Marshall Institute. Their principal strategy was to defend the products by insisting the science was unsettled, and therefore it was premature for the government to act. The Marshall Institute used this same strategy to campaign against the dangers of acid rain, ozone depletion, and DDT. Then, in the 1990s, they began a new doubt and denial campaign that would prove more deadly than anything that had come before. This time, Seitz and the Marshall Institute were being funded by the petroleum industry. With funding from oil and gas companies, think tanks and front groups were formed. Their purpose was to raise questions about the reality of climate change and convince politicians and the media that the science was unsettled.
The science is suggesting that maybe all of this isn't really happening, or it's not really dangerous, or it's not really man-made.
Holes are being poked in the whole theory of global warming.
Global warming is the biggest delusion of our lifetime. Man doesn't control his climate.
God controls the climate. Come on! Isn't that simple? Recognizing the technique is one step. Another step is to know the purpose.
Underlying it all is a simple concept. The public can't understand the complex science of climate change. So convince them that the scientists don't fully comprehend it yet either. And then persuade them that without sound science, it makes no sense to take preventative action.
Please consider yourself to be under oath. Let me begin my questioning on the matter of whether or not nicotine is addictive.
I believe nicotine is not addictive, yes.
Carbon dioxide is not a harmful gas.
The more CO2 that's in the atmosphere, the better plants grow.
There is a theological debate that this is a carbon-starved plant.
Do you believe nicotine is not addictive?
I believe that nicotine is not addictive.
And that the Earth is actually cooling now. Turns out the planet may be cooling.
But the globe hasn't warmed in the last decade.
The science is wrong. The economics is wrong.
None of this snake oil science stuff that is based on this global warming, gore stuff.
There are substantial scientists who have manipulated data.
Forget about all that global warming.
I don't believe climate change is real. Do I believe scientists? No!
When there's so much propaganda.
The truth can only remain hidden for so long. In reality, there is no remaining reasonable doubt about man's influence on climate change. This time, it is not the lives of millions at stake, but billions.
And I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
We have chosen to focus on climate reality because the key to finding solutions to this crisis is to start with an acceptance of what the reality is that we are actually facing. The scientific community has told us there is resistance to the truth that they have laid out to us. We are now seeing in our own lives, and we saw over the last 23 hours in the presentations from all around the world, what is happening in our world, in reality. When a challenge is difficult, it is tempting to push it away and not accept the reality that we have to confront. And this slideshow, which in varying forms, the variations being representative of the different regions that have hosted presentations over the last 23 hours, is designed to present that reality. It would be tempting to pretend that we don't have to face up to this. And actually somewhere, there may be a world where the temperatures are really not getting hotter, where people are not suffering the effects of the heat waves. There may be an Earth somewhere where the rainstorms are not getting bigger and destroying communities and destroying lives. There may be an Earth somewhere where bigger floods are not wreaking havoc and destroying homes and businesses and killing people and destroying whole cultures and mudslides. There may be an Earth somewhere where longer and deeper droughts are not killing crops and animals and people, driving up food prices and causing people to leave communities that they have called home for many generations. There may be an Earth somewhere where the fires are not spreading wildly and burning hotter and more intensely and burning longer. There may be an Earth somewhere where the winds and the storms are not getting more destructive, raising costs for disaster relief and reconstruction. Somewhere there may be such an Earth, but it's not this Earth. Here we have to deal with reality. And think for a moment about the reality that has unfolded for us in just the last year. In Pakistan, devastating floods. We all saw and felt the suffering of those who were caught in these incredible floods that covered a vast area of Pakistan. 20 million people affected by this flood, further destabilizing a nuclear-armed country. The poorest of the poor were those who were most devastated by this flood. This week, this picture was taken 2 days ago. It hasn't received much notice, but 5.5 million people have been affected this week in Pakistan by yet another devastating flood. In Australia, last January of this year, an incredible flood that covered an area that was as large as the nations of France and Germany combined. Devastating communities. Here you see the before and after pictures that represent many, many communities affected by this flooding. Just 6 weeks ago in South Korea, this mudslide reached the 4th story of a high-rise building. Significant areas of South Korea and some areas in North Korea were affected. In China, there have been many floods this year. In Hunan province and 12 other provinces, 8.5 million people have been affected just this year. In India, just 6 weeks ago, just 1 month ago, hundreds of villages were inundated, and here these people are looking at where their main highway used to be. In South America, in the nation of Colombia, we have seen an incredible event. They have had 5 times their average annual rainfall this year. 2 million people have been displaced from their homes in the nation of Colombia. The reconstruction budget for infrastructure, roads, bridges, buildings, has had a huge impact on this struggling nation. Here in the United States of America, this year, the Mississippi River had a record